Imagine a world without the FBI. It's hard, isn't it? The Federal Bureau of Investigation has become such an integral part of our society that it's almost impossible to picture life without it. But what if it never existed? What would our world look like? Who would track down the bad guys? In the early 1900s, local police forces were often overwhelmed and under-resourced. They did their best, but crime was rampant, and there was no national agency to coordinate efforts across state lines. Who would keep our country safe from danger? Without the FBI, there would be no centralized intelligence agency to handle threats to national security. Espionage, terrorism, and organized crime would have free rein, making our world a much more dangerous place. It's like imagining a world without firefighters or doctors. We need them. Just as firefighters are essential for putting out fires and doctors for treating illnesses, the FBI is crucial for maintaining law and order. Back in the early 1900s, the United States was a very different place. The country was growing rapidly, and with that growth came new challenges. Cities were expanding, and so was the complexity of crime. There wasn't an FBI yet, can you believe it? Local law enforcement agencies were often isolated and lacked the resources to tackle larger criminal enterprises. This made it difficult to address crimes that crossed state lines or involved multiple jurisdictions. Let's travel back in time and see what it was like. Imagine living in a small town where the local sheriff was the only law enforcement officer. He knew everyone in town, but his reach was limited. If a crime spree hit multiple towns, there was little he could do. Get ready for an adventure as we explore the story of how the FBI came to be. We'll delve into the events and challenges that led to the creation of this vital institution. From its humble beginnings to its evolution into a sophisticated agency, the FBI's story is one of resilience, innovation, and dedication to justice. So, buckle up and join us on this fascinating journey through history. The early 1900s in America were a time of great change. Cities were growing fast, and with that growth came new problems. It was a bit like the Wild West, even in big cities. Outlaws and gangsters were causing trouble all over. They were robbing banks, kidnapping people, and breaking all sorts of laws. It seemed like the bad guys were always one step ahead. Something had to be done to stop them, but who would do it? Back then, most towns and cities had their own police forces. These local police departments were responsible for maintaining law and order within their specific jurisdictions. Each town had its own set of officers who knew the community well and were familiar with the local issues and residents. But these police officers could only catch criminals in their own areas. Their authority was limited to the boundaries of their town or city. This meant that if a criminal managed to cross into another jurisdiction, the local police could no longer pursue them. They had to stop at the border and hope that the police in the next town would catch the criminal. Imagine a bad guy robbing a bank in New York and then escaping to Chicago. The moment he crossed the city limits, the New York police had to halt their chase. They couldn't follow him into another city, even if they knew exactly where he was headed. This created a significant loophole in the law enforcement system. The police in New York couldn't chase him to Chicago. They weren't allowed. This rule was strictly enforced, and any officer who crossed into another jurisdiction without permission could face serious consequences. It was like an invisible line stopped them at the edge of their town. It was like an invisible line stopped them at the edge of their town. This invisible barrier was a major hindrance to effective law enforcement. Criminals quickly learned to exploit this weakness. They would commit crimes in one town and then simply cross the border to evade capture. The criminals knew this, and they took advantage of it. They became more brazen, knowing that as long as they could make it to the next town, they were relatively safe. This led to an increase in crime and frustration among law enforcement officers who felt powerless to stop it. The United States needed a new kind of police force, one that could work across the entire country. This realization led to the formation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. The FBI was created to address the limitations of local police forces and to provide a nationwide law enforcement agency that could pursue criminals across state lines. With the establishment of the FBI, law enforcement officers finally had the ability to chase criminals wherever they went, ensuring that no one could escape justice simply by crossing a border. In 1908, a young lawyer named Charles Bonaparte had an idea. He was a man of vision, deeply committed to justice and the rule of law. Bonaparte, a grandnephew of the famous French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, was determined to make a mark in American history, not through conquest, but through the establishment of order and justice. He thought the United States needed a special agency to investigate crimes that crossed state lines. At that time, the country was growing rapidly, and so was the complexity of its criminal activities. Crimes were no longer confined to local jurisdictions, they spanned across states, making it difficult for local law enforcement to handle them effectively. Bonaparte imagined a team of highly trained agents like detectives in a mystery novel. These agents would be equipped with the skills and resources necessary to tackle the most challenging cases. They would be the nation's elite force, dedicated to upholding the law and protecting citizens from the growing threats of organized crime and corruption. Bonaparte shared his idea with President Theodore Roosevelt, who thought it was a great plan. Roosevelt, known for his progressive policies and strong stance on law and order, saw the potential in Bonaparte's vision. He understood that a centralized investigative body could bring about significant improvements in the nation's ability to combat crime. And so, on July 26, 1908, the FBI was born. Well, sort of. The initial establishment was modest, with limited resources and personnel. However, it marked the beginning of a new era in American law enforcement. Back then, it wasn't called the FBI yet. The agency started as the Bureau of Investigation, a name that reflected its primary function of conducting investigations. It was called the Bureau of Investigation. The early years were challenging as the Bureau had to establish its credibility and build a reputation for effectiveness and integrity. The agents worked tirelessly, often under difficult conditions, to solve cases and bring criminals to justice. It would take a few more years and a lot of hard work before it became the FBI we know today. Over time, the Bureau expanded its scope and capabilities, adapting to the changing landscape of crime and law enforcement. By the 1930s, under the leadership of Edgar Hoover, the Bureau underwent significant reforms and rebranding, eventually becoming the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. Today, the FBI stands as a testament to Charles Bonaparte's vision and the enduring commitment to justice and the rule of law. Section 5, Small Beginnings, Big Dreams. The Bureau of Investigation started small. It only had a few dozen agents, and they didn't have fancy cars or high-tech gadgets like today's FBI. They had to be clever and resourceful to solve crimes. But these early agents were determined to make a difference. They tackled cases involving everything from bank robberies and espionage to interstate car theft. Slowly but surely, the Bureau of Investigation began to make a name for itself. Section 6, G-Men and Women in Action. Today, the FBI is one of the most respected law enforcement agencies in the world. Its agents, often called G-Men and G-Women, work tirelessly to keep our country safe. They investigate a wide range of crimes, from terrorism and cybercrime to organized crime and white-collar crime. They are like the real-life superheroes of law enforcement. Section 7, the Future of Justice. The FBI is always evolving to meet new challenges. As technology changes and new threats emerge, the FBI continues to adapt and improve. One thing is certain, the FBI will always be there, working behind the scenes to protect our country and uphold justice. Who knows what exciting adventures await the FBI in the future? Section 8, Cracking Codes and Catching Crooks. Have you ever wanted to crack a secret code? FBI agents do it all the time. They use their brains and special tools to decipher messages from criminals and spies. They also use their detective skills to track down criminals, sometimes using fingerprints, DNA evidence, and even footprints. It's like solving a giant puzzle, and the FBI is always up for the challenge. Section 9, Protecting America from Afar. The FBI doesn't just work in the United States. It also has offices around the world, working with other countries to fight crime and terrorism. They might be stopping pirates on the high seas, rescuing hostages from dangerous situations, or preventing cyber attacks from happening in the first place. The FBI is like America's shield, protecting us from danger both at home and abroad. Section 10, the FBI family. The FBI is more than just a job, it's a family. FBI agents, analysts, scientists, and support staff work together as a team to protect our country. They rely on each other for support, encouragement, and a shared commitment to justice. It takes a special kind of person to be a part of the FBI, someone who is brave, intelligent, and dedicated to making the world a safer place. Section 11, your FBI adventure awaits. So there you have it, the story of how the FBI came to be. From humble beginnings to a global force for good, the FBI has come a long way in the past century, and who knows, maybe one day you'll join the ranks of the FBI and embark on your own adventure in protecting our country and upholding justice. The future of the FBI is bright and it's waiting for you.